Okay, and good evening to everybody that are with us in the headache school tonight. And for those who this is their first time, I'll introduce myself. My name is Dan Kaufman. I'm a research assistant professor here at the Department of Neurology. And what we decided to do in headache school in the fourth week of the month is to provide skills and techniques because we've talked in the past about what would be the best content for headache school. And we realized that all the lectures are wonderful, there's important information, but we did also realize that some participants would like to have much more of an ongoing hands-on skills or something that they can take with them. So we decided to do every month on the fourth week of the month to do. It's going to be a bit of a lecture, but it's mostly skills and techniques. So we're actually going to do some hands-on things, and each and every month it's dedicated on a different topic. And what I would like to cover today is a very big topic. It's a huge topic that is called forgiveness. We won't be able to cover everything in 1 hour, but I would definitely want to give some important information and pieces and skills that hopefully you can take with you and apply that to your lives because those are from my experience can be very, very much transformative. So before we continue, I would like to share my screen and share my presentation. Um, is a topic of forgiveness and how forgiveness can help us get better. This is migraine school. Most of the people listening in are living with migraines. So how does forgiveness have anything to do with migraine? So, first of all, why are we even interested in forgiveness? Is because the connection between migraine and emotional stress has been very well documented. Not everybody, but a lot of people living with migraine report that stressors, emotional stressors, relationship stressors can definitely uh, cause or promote chronification of their migraines. And so, because there's a lot of different stressors that all of us, but especially people with migraine, are experiencing, a lot of those stressors can be coped or resolved using forgiveness. And when I talk about forgiveness, I'm talking about forgiveness of others, if there is a specific person that we have problematic relationship with, and also forgiveness of ourselves. But before we talk about forgiveness, I want to say something about grievance and grievance stories, which is going to be our first exercise for today. Whenever things happen to us in life, we all move through life and we experience all sorts of things. Usually, when things happen to us that we did not anticipate or didn't want, or it's like when life said no, usually we form a grievance story. And grievance stories are formed when we're unable to deal with what happens when life kind of says no, or when we're not able to get what is it that we wanted or aspired, and so forth and so on. And what happens is that we kept ruminating and keep rehearsing to ourselves everything that happened, and especially the injustice. The more time we spend on ruminating, dwelling on what happened, dwelling on the loss, dwelling on whatever is it that caused us to feel stressed, the more we are strengthening the grievance stories in our lives. So when we all have grievance stories, no matter where and to what proportion, but when we look at forgiveness, forgiveness is kind of the antidote. Forgiveness is a coping mechanism that we can learn to help relieve all sorts of sources of stress and help us relieve our grievance stories. And I want to emphasize a lot of people, when they think about forgiveness, they think that forgiveness is some sort of a spiritual enlightenment. And what I'm going to cover in a minute is to say that forgiveness is actually a skill. It is a skill that everybody can learn. And the more we practice that, the more we can help with all sorts of sources of stress in our lives, and especially with relationship issues that we encounter. So, what are some sources of stress that we all face, especially people with migraine, and how can forgiveness help those? A lot of times, a lot of people with migraine I work with had some childhood adversity, some events that affected them, maybe trauma, maybe emotional or physical trauma. Using forgiveness of others can help with better coping with those events. Sometimes when we are at our workplace and we experience either harassment or discrimination or bullying, and it's definitely not to justify such a behavior, but in order for us to help ourselves get into a better place, we can use forgiveness of others to help with whatever is that occur in our workplaces that causing us distress. Sometimes we have issues with our significant other or family or friends, people who don't understand us. They don't understand how much we're suffering, how much migraine affects our lives. They're not supporting us. Sometimes we've been stigmatized. People feel that, migraine is just not a big deal. By cultivating forgiveness of those other people and forgiveness for ourselves, we can help ourselves better cope with those events. We also encounter a lot of issues with healthcare. Maybe some doctors are a little skeptics about what we're presenting. Maybe we've gone through some misdiagnosis. Maybe we have some difficulty with insurance or all sorts of things that allows us to feel alienated. Sometimes we feel shame. We blame ourselves for not able to do something that is regular activities. I hear a lot of people, like parents, coming to me and say, I feel like such a bad mom or such a bad father because I have migraine and I can't attend my daughter's or my son's event or either soccer tournament or concert or whatever, and they feel shame. They feel that they're struggling with their own self-esteem and with their own ability to be parent. A lot of time we feel a lot of anger towards migraine, anger towards the world, towards health provider, family members, even life and God. All of those things that are common sources of stress that I've noticed when working with people with migraine can be better worked and coped with by using forgiveness skills of self and others. Now, before I move on, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of misconceptions about forgiveness. We have a lot of ideas what forgiveness is and isn't, and most of the time, when I hear people when I talk to them about forgiveness, I experience a lot of negativity in terms of no, there are some cases I can't forgive, I won't forgive, and that's okay, but a lot of that is stemming from misunderstanding about what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't. So I'd like to start with what forgiveness is not. Because forgiveness is not about condoning unkindness. It's not about that if I forgive someone, that means that what they've done is okay. No, it is actually understanding that what someone did to me was not okay. Forgiveness is also not about forgetting that something painful has happened. It's not about diminishing the hurt that we feel due to someone else's action. It's also not about excusing bad behavior or saying that, okay, if I forgive someone, that means that what they've done is okay. No, it's not about that. And it's also not denying or minimizing how much all of you have been hurt, all of us have been hurt by some actions that were unjustified. It also doesn't mean that if I forgive someone, I automatically need to reconcile or become their best friend. And it also doesn't mean the fact that I need to give up everything that I feel about that person or everything that happened and just ignore that and completely forgive. And most importantly, as I mentioned before, a lot of people think that forgiveness is something that is reserved only for the Dalai Lama or someone who is like spiritually enlightened. Actually, that is incorrect. Forgiveness is a skill, and as I mentioned, everybody can learn to use that skills and techniques in order to help them feel better. So Now that we covered a little bit about what forgiveness is not, and I want to emphasize when we are forgiving, this is a process we're doing for us. The focus of forgiveness is on the person commencing the forgiveness. It has nothing to do with the other person, what they have done, what they should be getting, how do we treat them. It is about us claiming our responsibility and releasing ourselves from whatever someone else has done to us. And so now that we talked about what forgiveness isn't, then what is forgiveness? First of all, forgiveness is something that we give ourselves. It is a peace that we give ourselves when we are really willing to let go of all of those grievance stories and all of those things that we're carrying that have not been resolved. Forgiveness is about us, it's about all of you. It has nothing to do with someone else or even with the person who hurt us. When we're forgiving, we're taking back our power. And again, that just relates to the fact that it's about us and it's taking responsibility to how we feel, not the other person. When we choose forgiveness is when we choose our healing and our and promoting our strength. Again, it's about us and not the other person. As I mentioned, forgiveness is skill. And when we choose to forgive, we actively take control over our lives, over our feelings, and we become less automatically triggered by the incident that occurred or having emotional outbursts automatically occur whenever we think or someone mentions that event that causes us the grievance stories. When we choose to be forgiving and access forgiveness, we're actually becoming the hero. We're creating our own decision and our own lives, and we're not a victim of what happened and keep harboring resentment and anger. And with that in mind, I just want to share a little bit of a little story about someone I worked with. And he came with a lot of anger about things that happened to him. And I remember asking him, so here you are sitting here. It's been many, many years from all of those things that happened to you, but we don't know what's going to happen or what is currently happening with those other people that hurt you. What we do know is that you're here right now after so many years have passed from that experience, but you're still angry. And how is that working for you? And immediately said, oh no, it's horrible. So how about we do something to help you claim ownership and do whatever you decide to do and release all of those other people. And I'm not saying it's immediate, it's a process, it's a skill, but forgiveness is about freeing ourselves and releasing someone else, maybe from an apology that we think they owe us. It is also about being in the present, not in the past. So, why is it so important to forgive? Why do we even talk about it? The thing is that there's a lot of research that has been done on forgiveness itself and how forgiveness is connected to medical conditions. And research has shown that the more people cultivate forgiveness and the more forgiving they report fewer health problems. It leads to stress reduction, fewer physical stress symptoms. And on the contrary, when we're more resentful, more unable to forgive, we're harboring more stress that we already know is a risk factor for many, many health related conditions. And so when people found the ability and the skill to forgive, they reported a lot of improvements in many, many different physical conditions. So, with that in mind, we want to just offer very specific skills today in the limited time that we have. And what I would like you all to do right now is it's a pen and pencil exercise. I would like you to take 5 minutes. And in this 5 minutes, I would like you to make a list. And in this list, I would like you to write down all the things that bothered you and still bother you in your life. It can be anything. Just make the list, and I want to emphasize you will not be required to say or to convey those stories. These are personal stories. We're just going to do a little bit of an exercise to let you know something about grievances. So take about 5 minutes, make a list, and briefly describe all those things, really kind of in 1 or 2 sentences, those things that bothered you and still bother you in your life right now. So we'll take just about 5 minutes. Again, just keep making the list and really briefly describe all sorts of things that bothered you and are still bothering you in your life. We're just going to take about 5 minutes for that, and then we're going to do something with that list. And let's take about 2 more minutes. Okay. So hopefully you were able to write some things and make a list of things that bothered you and still bothering you. And now, what I would like you to do is look at the following statements that are going to appear on the slide. And whenever a statement is true for one or more of the things that you've written, just put a check mark. Okay, so I'm going to provide you with a list of statements. And if they're true towards one or more of the things that you've listed, just put a check mark. Okay, so the first thing, notice, have you told the story of each of those items more than twice to the same person? If it's true, just put a check mark or an X or whatever. Okay. I replay the story more than 2 times in a given day in my mind. Notice if any of those stories or any of the things that bother you, do you replay them more than twice in a given in a given day? If it's true, just put a check mark. I find myself speaking to the person who hurt me even when they're not there. So just notice if any of those things that you've written, if it involves someone else, do you find yourself as if you're talking to them even when they're not there, maybe in your mind's eye, telling them some things, maybe swearing at them, maybe telling them what you think about them? If that's true, just put a check mark. I made a commitment to myself to tell the story without feeling upset, and then I get upset. Notice if any of the stories, any of the thing that bothered you, you really told yourself, no, this is the last time I'm going to get upset. I'm just going to be calm in telling it. And whenever you told it, you find yourself getting upset again. Put a check mark to whatever, whichever things that bothered you that's true for. The person who hurt me is the main character in that story. So notice when you wrote those things that bothered you, notice if there's a specific someone there that is the main kind of the main villain of that story. And if there is someone, again, just put a check mark next to that thing that bothered you. Next. The story reminds me of other painful things that have happened in my life. Notice if one story or more that is bothering you, notice if when you think about it or replay it, notice if it reminds me of something else that was painful or happened to you. And if there is, go ahead and put a check mark next. The story focuses primarily on my pain and what I've lost. Notice if there's anything that you've written that is really you're focusing on how bad things were, how much you've been hurt, what you've lost, and so forth and so on. And if there is, just put a check mark. I made a commitment to myself to not tell this story again and then told it again. So similar to not being upset, I promised myself I'm not going to tell this. It's done. I'm going to forget it. And then something happened. I just couldn't help myself. And I told that story again, or even several times. Notice if you have something like that, something that bothered you is exactly like that. You told yourself, I'm never going to say it. It's done. I'm forgetting it. And then you just couldn't. And you find yourself telling that again. I seem to find other people with this similar story. So a lot of times when we have something that happened to us, then we really tend to find someone that exact thing happened to them as well. Notice if there's anything that bothered you that you happen to find someone that exactly something like that kind of happened to them as well, and you were able to talk to them about that. The story has stayed the same over time. Notice if any of the things that bothered you, did they change or did you keep repeating them over and over and over the same way each and every time? So notice everything that is on that slide. And pretty much if we put about more than 3 check marks in one of our stories, it's probably likely that this is a grievance story, meaning that this is something that happened to us that we feel unjustified, something that is unfair happened to us, and we keep ruminating on it, creating a grievance story. And if that's the case, then we can use forgiveness to help ourselves with that story. So when we talk about grievance stories, in general, we can use this all those statements to identify whether we have grievance story or not. But in general, we form grievance stories when two things occur simultaneously. One, something happens in our life and we didn't want it to happen and we feel pain about it. It's like when life told us no. It's like we wanted something, it didn't happen, or something else happened, or the opposite happened, and it caused us to feel pain. That's number one. And number two, we keep ruminating. We think about the problem, we think about the pain constantly, or even like a lot. And a lot of time it happens because we don't know any other way to better deal with our emotional pain. So we keep repeating it, thinking that if we repeat it in our minds, maybe somehow we can find a solution. Maybe we can resolve it somehow. But when we do those two things, when something happens that causes pain and we keep ruminating about it, usually that is a sign that we have some grievance story. How does a grievance story affect us? Well, it affects us because a lot of times we took whatever happened, we took the offense too personally. It's like it happened to us, to me. And we take it very, very personally. And a lot of time taking the blame. A lot of times we're blaming the offender for how you feel. And it's not about if it's justified or not, it's about the fact that we're giving the power to the offender. And again, when we ruminate constantly, we're making it a story. It keeps replaying itself in our mind, making it a grievance story. So now, assuming that we know or found some or more grievance stories, what can we do about it? So I would like to emphasize forgiveness is a skill, and there's a lot to say about grievance and forgiveness. We won't be able to deal with everything and to give you the whole skills of forgiveness because that's like a 7-week course. But what we can do is that we can give you a taste of what it feels like experiencing forgiveness. So we're going to do some forgiveness meditation. This meditation was adapted from Jack Cornfield, who is an amazing mindfulness instructor. And what we're going to do in this forgiveness meditation, what I would like you to do, I would like you to choose an event either from your list or, it doesn't have to be from your list. But what I would ask you to choose is choose an event that happened to you with someone that is mildly stressful. Don't take like a full-blown, huge, annoying, making angry event, trauma. No, because it's a skill. We want to start slow so you can learn the skill and then you can take it to more complicated situations. But for now, we really want to start with small. So choose an event, interaction we had with someone, misunderstanding, someone maybe said something that was mildly offensive, something of that nature that you can work on during the meditation. If you have something, we're going to start with a relaxation. After relaxation, I'm going to have you imagine yourself and the other person when the event happened, and I would like you to look at the situation from an objective point. It's like you're looking at yourself and looking at the other person as if you're a reporter or a fly on the wall, as if you're just trying to report an event that happened. Then, after you've done that, I'm going to ask you to move the situation. So now you're seeing the situation from your own eyes. So it's like you're entering your body and looking at the other person. And then we're going to do a process of forgiveness and release. And then we're going to close. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. It's going to be our meditation for today. And as we start, I would like to ask all of you to start just sitting comfortably. You can lie down if you want. Make sure that you're listening in and can listen to my voice and do the exercise. And as you're doing that, what I'm inviting you to do is just make sure that you're noticing your body, noticing yourself, and just sit and relax. Notice the contact that your back is making with the chair or the bed. Notice your feet on the floor, your arms next to you, and whenever you're ready, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and close your eyes, just comfortably so. I'd like you to know that you can always open your eyes whenever you feel like it, or whenever I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. But for now, just keep them comfortably closed and start with deeper inhaling and exhaling. And just do that comfortably, not too deep, but I'm inviting you to just notice your breath. Notice each and every inhale and each and every exhale. And I would like you to notice how each and every inhale, you're inhaling relaxation with each and every exhale. Just imagining you taking out all the stressors and the worries and everything to come up. Just imagine that all the stressors are just leaving your body fully and completely without coming back. And that allows you to just be relaxed even more. And again, with each and every inhale, inhaling relaxation, with each and every exhale, exhaling all the stressors to never come back. And just by doing that, notice how much your body is relaxing even more and how much your mind can follow as your body is relaxing. And with that in mind, I would like you to know that forgiveness is a skill. And forgiveness enables us to really release all of those things that happened, all those grievances and sorrows from the past. And this is a skill that we can develop. And with that in mind, after we've identified what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't, I would like you also to remember that engaging in this meditation, engaging in this process, it allows yourself to reclaim your own power, your own strength, enabling you to release the other person and set yourself free. When you choose to forgive, you choose to act from the heart. You choose to let go of pain, of resentment, anything that you're carrying, any burden that this incident may have caused you. Because we all have been harmed, we all have been, all sorts of injustice has happened to us. Maybe sometimes we harmed ourselves or others, but it is about engaging in the process of forgiveness and releasing and letting go without connecting the wound and the pain and having the ability to really release ourselves. And as you're doing that, I'm inviting you now to imagine the specific incidents that you'd like to forgive the other person. Make sure you're choosing something that is very mild, something that happened to you, maybe a mild misunderstanding, or maybe someone that said something that you may disagree or find mildly offensive. And I would like you now to imagine yourself on one side and the other person on the other side. And I would like you to watch yourself in that situation as if you're watching a movie and watch the other person on the other side and notice the interaction that happens between them. Notice what is going on, what is being said or done. And as you're doing that, I would like you to notice that as if you're a reporter or a fly on the wall, or just without any emotional connection, just reporting what exactly is being said or done. And you might want to repeat that in your mind's eye, saying, the other person says so and so, and you can use your personal name and says, your personal name is doing so and so, behaving so and so. And as you're doing that, notice that both you and the other person are equidistant to you as an observer. Both both of you and the other person are the same eye level, and the same eye level from you as the observer of that situation. And just notice that this interaction is completely neutral from your observer perspective. And if you notice any personal feelings that are more connected to you personally as you experience that situation, imagine that you're just pushing those feelings and letting them go to yourself in that situation. Just making sure you're maintaining neutrality as an observer, that you really can just report what is being done or said. Just like reporting a story. As you're doing that, as you're watching the situation from an observer, allowing yourself to get an observer position, notice, what did you learn from that experience, watching that experience as an observer? Notice, what can you learn or know as you're looking at the experience from an observer perspective. Give yourself like a couple of seconds to notice, what can you learn as you're reviewing that experience from an observer perspective. And now, as you maybe want to formulate some statement like I learned or I know, or something that you learned from this experience, I would like you now to imagine that the situation is kind of moving, and then it's like the scene is turning around so that now you're getting inside your own body in that situation. So now you're no longer an observer, now you're inside your body in that situation, seeing everything from your own eyes, seeing the other person from your own eyes. But now you have the extra information that you gain from being an observer. And notice how that information from being an observer helps look at the situation maybe a little differently now. Maybe making whatever happened a little less personal, a little more objective. And as you're doing that and collected that information, I would like you now to start telling yourself there are many ways that I have been harmed by others, maybe abandoned or hurt knowingly or unknowingly, in thought, word, or deed. And as you're doing that, maybe feeling some of the sorrow that you've carried from this incident, from the past. And I would like you now to notice that you can release that burden, you can release that pain. And I would like you now to imagine, in whatever way that works for you, that you release that burden from your heart, release that pain, whatever emotions are up there, just releasing them and letting go. And now imagining that you're extending forgiveness from your heart to the other person in whichever way you choose to think about it. Just imagine that forgiveness is flowing now from your heart to this other person. And as you're doing that, keep saying to yourself, I now remember the many ways others have hurt or harmed me, maybe wound me, maybe they've done it out of fear, out of their own pain, or maybe their own confusion or anger. But I've carried this pain in my heart far too long. And to the extent that I'm now ready, I offer them forgiveness. To those who've harmed me, to this other person, I offer my forgiveness. And when and if you're ready, go ahead and imagine telling to that person, I forgive you. I forgive you. And notice any sensation that occur as you're practicing, and you can repeat that several more times until you feel that you can really release the other person and let go. I've carried this pain far too long. To the extent that I'm ready, I offer my forgiveness. I forgive you. And as you're doing that, just imagine in whichever shape or form that is right for you. Imagine that forgiveness is flowing from your heart and imagining that the other person accepted your forgiveness. And notice how that forgiveness maybe have changed them. Maybe they look differently. Maybe they sound differently. Maybe there's some change in them in whatever way, shape, or form. And I would like you to know that you can repeat that as many times as you need in order to fully and completely release the other person. And as you're doing that, allowing yourself to feel more relaxed, more centered, Notice how it feels now when you're able to clear and let go of pain, let go of resentment, and forgive the other person. Mind, imagine that the other person is disappearing. Mind's eye. Allow yourself now to focus on your breath again, allowing yourself to breathe even deeper, maybe take another satisfying breath and release. Notice how light you may feel, or more comfortable, much happier you are now that you've released some burden, some pain that you might have carried. Notice how good that may feel. And with that in mind, knowing that you can repeat the exercise as many times as you want with whoever is it that you want to release or extend forgiveness. And as this meditation comes to an end, now slowly, slowly get back into your body. Start counting from 1 to 5. When I'm going to get to 5, you open your eyes, being the here and now, relaxed, comfortable, normal in every possible way, acknowledging the wonderful effects of the exercise you've just done. So, 1, slowly, slowly get back to the here and now. 2, you're more aware, more awake, more alert. 3, you might want to wiggle your fingers and toes, move a little bit in your chair or your bed. 4, you might want to stretch your arms and stretch your legs, maybe move a little bit. And 5, whenever you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes, be in the here and now, relaxed. Okay, so take your time. That was short forgiveness meditation.